Hi, I'm Lauren Edmonds. I'm the founder and owner of a school that supports children with learning delays. I'm hoping this space gives you something to think about. I want to talk a little bit about the value of reading. And while this is a very big topic and there can be lots to say on it, I want to really focus on the idea of empathy and how we develop empathy through helping our children through fiction stories. Let's just start a bit about what empathy is and why it's important. Empathy is the ability to put yourself into somebody else's shoes and have a notion or an idea of what they might be going through. You can see how this would be very important in society because it establishes and lays the groundwork for developing social connection, developing an ability to reflect and be gracious towards somebody else, that through empathy we feel more valued and loved and cared for. We tend to feel happier when other people can empathize with us and we can have empathy with them. There's a connection, a blissfulness in that connection. It can help reduce conflicts in social situations. It helps children to regulate their emotions because they're not so stuck in themselves. They can lean out into somebody else's space and find that others can lean into theirs and they can feel more connected and therefore more regulated. So empathy is very important for children to learn and to experience from a social point of view and from a self point of view, confidence, ability to be in the world. When we read stories to our children, we should be choosing stories that we feel like children can connect to the characters, can connect to the emotions. We need to choose stories that are quite rich emotionally. They could have complex characters or a complex storyline that really engages kids and makes them think about things. We also want to look for characters that our child could relate to. And that's when we start looking into the therapeutic side of storytelling. And there's a whole industry around therapeutic storytelling. And many therapists will use the opportunity to create stories with their clients, with their child clients, so that children can process their own stuff through creation of character and story. And it has a great therapeutic value to it. One of the things I was told many years ago is that children, their play is them processing their emotions, processing what they're going through. And often they play out in the playground things that they've seen on TV that they're trying to make sense of. So sort of the cops and robbers type idea is this, I'm seeing it in visual form from a TV program, a film, a YouTube video, a series. I'm seeing it out there and I'm trying to process what that means for me. So I play it out. And that to a large extent is where the idea of play therapy comes from, as opposed to talk therapy, especially for younger children. So if we are reading stories to our children and we're reading them, we're finding stories that our children can get hooked into and that have a good storyline, that are well written, that are designed well, possibly designed to address a fear or a concern that a child has, using the stories to help process that emotion that the child is going through. And it doesn't have to be a therapeutic story, though those are wonderful because they're stories. They're just stories. They could be about a little tree or a red truck or a character that gets stuck in a mine maybe or something like that. But the story is written in a way that children can connect to. And in many ways, stories are a manifestation of our dreams and our desires and our feelings and emotions. So even when us as adults watch a movie, there's a projection that we have onto that. You know, I don't think we're ever going to go and be an Indiana Jones character, but we can live vicariously through the story, and children have the same opportunity to explore life through stories before they even get to those parts in their lives. They can explore friendships. They can explore conflict within friendships. They can explore death through stories. a family member moving overseas that they're very close to. They can explore divorce in stories, and it helps children to process those emotions and then also develop empathy for all the different characters in the story. And in developing empathy for them, they learn how to develop empathy for themselves. And that's something that we really need our children to have. When we read stories, fiction stories to our children, we are boosting their listening skills, we're fostering their imagination, developing that empathy, building memory, modeling behaviors, modeling how to engage with others, and really increasing positive emotions and positive self-esteem and language that children can take on for themselves. And out of all of this, if we're experiencing the story with our child, we can elicit further conversation, further discussion, further connection. Why did they do this? How did you feel when she did this? What would you have done in that situation? Did you like the ending? How would you have changed it? And not in a mechanical way. You don't ask the questions as if they're a school comprehension, but just a discussion. And you can start it off. I used to love with my kids, I used to love saying things like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I expected that to happen. Or I might say something like, oh, this character is really frustrating me. I wish she would just. And in those comments is to get my kids to really think about. They don't have to take it as rote, that they take the story and they think deeper. And ultimately, we want to develop thinking skills in children, because that's the thing that really underlies all the learning that we're giving them at school and outside of school. So reading is vitally important for so many other reasons other than just this. But this is one reason why I believe we should be reading stories to our children, and a vast variety of stories as well, so they can be exposed to different cultures, different countries, different traditions, different ways of thinking about things. The world is their oyster through stories. And if we can do it through reading more so than we do it through movies and the visual side of things, what we do is we trigger imagination and we trigger the process that is required for developing understanding, empathy, and healing. So I highly recommend that you read stories to your kids. And while academically we might put out a reading log and we want you to read 20 minutes a day, that's just the structure. It's actually more about making your family a reading family. And it starts with having some books around the house, and it starts with you enjoying stories with your kids. One of the stories I laughed so loudly and so much when I was reading it. It was a Roald Dahl book, and I think it was called The Twits. Or maybe it was The Witches. Either one of those, I can't remember. But I took the time to turn my phone off, to switch my work brain off, and to really get engaged in the story. And we giggled from beginning to end. And I remember that. And I'm sure there are other stories that my kids remember differently to how I remember them. But I really try to make sure that I engaged with the story, with them, and I made it an opportunity for connection and growth and development of our relationship, and developing that empathy in my kids. Because I feel like when children can have empathy, they tend to have a better self-esteem, stronger self-talk, and a more grounded sense of who they are. And that's what I said earlier, is empathy is required from a self-regulation point of view. Because if you're combative in the world, you tend to not be very settled and grounded in who you are. And empathy, to my mind, allows you to rest in who you are and have empathy for somebody else and not be overly triggered by other people. Is to say, sure, I see this is difficult for you. I am still me. I'm not you. You are you. But I can see how this would be hard. And you can have this great connection with somebody else without letting it throw you off and destabilize you. So you can see how reading stories, beautiful, lovely, creative, engaging stories with rich, complex characters, how it really can build your child's sense of themselves, their confidence, their self-esteem, their regulation, their groundedness.